in high-rise buildings and implementing the FAR system, which is a firefighter air replenishment system. We have a little video here to show you that'll explain it, and then I have a PowerPoint to show you as well.
Firefighters need two essential things to respond to fires in big buildings and rescue the people inside: air and water. Without water, firefighters can't extinguish the blaze. Without air, firefighters won't survive in the toxic, smoky environment. We solve the problem of water delivery by requiring the installation of water standpipes for fire hoses. These are required in all big buildings. But the delivery of air bottles continued to be done the old-fashioned way, by hand. A group of firefighters, known as an air bottle brigade, would be assigned to carry replacement air bottles up numerous flights of stairs to fire crews on upper floors. It is a slow and difficult process, made even more challenging by the hot, smoky conditions and the 100 pounds of equipment firefighters must wear as they climb. And an air bottle only lasts 15 to 25 minutes, so fire crews need a lot of them. Carrying air bottles upstairs takes trained firefighters away from critical tasks like fire attack and search and rescue. When seconds matter, more crews fighting the fire saves lives and property. There's a better way. A firefighter air replenishment system, also called FARS. A FARS is a standpipe for air, which allows firefighters to refill their air bottles inside a building at fill stations located all the way to the roof. And they can do it in 2 minutes or less, under full respiration. Air is supplied by the fire department's mobile air unit, from a supply of air stored in the building, or both. The air in FARS is tested regularly, and in a recent study of FARS air samples, the air quality exceeded NFPA standards. What's more, because this is a building-installed system, FARS doesn't impact city budgets. Buildings are getting larger. Cities are getting denser. But fire department budgets are not getting bigger. That's why cities in 19 states are requiring FARS, and the list is growing. Long ago, the water standpipe replaced hauling buckets. The air standpipe replaces hauling air bottles. Firefighters and the citizens they protect need FARS.
Oh, okay. We got two mice here and we're fighting over the mouse. We're helping each other. There we go. So there's the short explanation of what a FAR system is. So that's the what is it. Our current ordinance, or definition according to the Appendix L, is just a pipe system that supplies air, just like the video said. The water system that we have right now in the standpipes or in the sprinkler system, it mimics that, only it supplies air. So no more are we going to have to do the bottle brigade, which takes up a ton of manpower. So current ordinance that was done in 2006 by council, it's a 16 square foot room. It's constructed with a 2-hour protection on every 5th floor, and that's where we stage equipment such as extra hose, tools, 4 SCBA bottles, extra nozzles, etc. So why do we need to change the ordinance? This is current buildings being built in Coeur d'Alene, but Coeur d'Alene is starting to see a growth of up, not out, because we've run out of room. So the SCBA bottles that are in these rooms, they have to be tested every 5 years and replaced every 15. Our current ordinance doesn't have a plan to replace these bottles. So after 15 years, those bottles have to be replaced by the city. So if we have 10 high rises, long after I'm gone, we could have three rooms per building, four bottles per room. So you got 12 bottles per building. Multiply that by 10, 120 bottles. That's at $2,000 a bottle, roughly. So that's a big cost to the city. And then if we change our air packs from the brand we use right now to a different brand, we've got to replace them all so we can use those bottles. Hoses tested every year, replaced if found defective. Nozzles replaced as needed. Other equipment is replaced. And again, there's no plan for us to maintain these or replace the equipment that's in these rooms right now. So here is Morgan. She's one of our firefighters, and this shows you what she will have to carry as we're going into the high rise. So not only is she wearing about 100 pounds of gear, she has to carry extra hose, and then she's carrying extra bottles with her. So she's going to be tired out as she gets to, let's say, the 6th or 7th floor. These bottles, they say they last 45 minutes, but when you're working hard, they'll last you 15 to 20. So we're gonna be using a lot of bottles if there's a fire in a high rise. This is what staged equipment looks like. Many bottles. So the full bottles get taken up, and then the empty bottles need to be brought back down so we can fill them outside the high rise. If we actually have a high rise fire, we are calling in as many people as possible. And the people that come in, if they're not on calls already, is gonna pull from Spokane. We're gonna deplete the county with the amount of firefighters that we need to fight a high rise fire. Some advantages of FARs versus staged equipment. There's the Cadillac version of the FARs, which is a compressor and a storage unit and the system inside the building itself. Or there's the system that has a cascade system that'll fill up to 50 bottles, and they can fill those bottles under less than 2 minutes when you hook in and then the fire department shows up with our air trailer. Oops, I went too far ahead. We have an air trailer that can hook into the outside of the building and supply continuous air for as long as we need it. Again, the disadvantages of the staged equipment in these firefighter rooms, they're every 5th floor, which could limit our firefighting capabilities depending on where that fire is and where the floor is where we have this equipment. And then we have to do the bottle brigade, so that takes a lot of manpower, and it takes it from the rest of the county. And then no sustainable plan to replace any of this equipment that we have. Here's our air monitoring system. This is what it looks like. This has the compressor, monitors the air and the pressure inside that system. Here's a cascade system with a little portable compressor, or not portable, but fixed compressor. That keeps air in the system, and it's monitored just like a sprinkler system. So if it did develop a leak, it would notify the building owner that they have to have it serviced and inspected. So they're constantly monitored. This picture over here with all these bottles, that's the cascade system that'll fill 50 bottles until we can hook our trailer into it. Here's a picture of our trailer. Meridian Fire, they've got a truck, and then this is an example of a pedestal system that's outside. So it can either be installed on the outside of the building for us to hook into, or a pedestal like this on an island or something. The city of Meridian adopted the FARs, Boise just adopted the FARs, and so did Nampa. So we'd be the first city up here in North Idaho. This is what the fill ports look like in the stairwells. So you can see the firefighters, they don't have to carry up the extra bottles. They do have to carry extra hose, but they can fill as they're going up. Or if they've been fighting the fire or doing a rescue, they can fill in that stairwell, either the floor below or a couple floors below to replace their air. So the cost comparison between FARs and our current ordinance, roughly the building that First and Lakeside, they were roughly $75,000 for all the equipment that was in it. That doesn't include the cost of making that room. I just got from Johnson Controls an estimated cost between 2022 and 2024. They did an analysis, and it's between the 0.5% to 1.85% of the total cost of the building. So it is more than what we are currently required in our ordinance, but those costs are also going to keep increasing. And then the city is on the hook for, again, replacement of those bottles and testing all the equipment that's in there. An example, fire alarm systems range from $4 to $7 a square foot, and sprinkler system range from $2 to $7 a square foot. So we're also anticipating the cost to come down as more and more people start getting qualified to install these systems. Right now it's Johnson Controls. They own the system. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I'll tell you that your video was very powerful. First of all, it's just incredibly serious business what you do with sometimes very tragic outcomes. I think that anything we can do to make sure that you're safe and you're able to help other people be safe, we need to do it. My question is, you just went through the cost, which thank you for doing that. Have you had conversations with area builders? I would hope they would be in support. Your safety comes first, and those of all of our citizens. But what kind of conversations have you had?
We've emailed a few times, and then I sent the group the video that you guys just saw, and I've had no comments come back as of yet.
That's interesting.
And when Meridian put their ordinance in place, they also submitted to their area NFBCA group, they had no questions that were submitted back from their request, their notification. So we were gonna go last month to present to governmental affairs for NIBCA, and the meeting was canceled. So we just have not had an opportunity to reschedule that. The newest tower for Hagedon, we told them that this is where we wanted to go. They were aware of it. It appears they may have beat us, because I think the permit came in last week, so they're likely ahead of this change.
Well, hopefully, if we make this change, we could convince them that this is important and the right thing to do. Thank you.
Sure. Couple of things. When I hear the air bottles and things, and I don't know if air and oxygen are, kind of synonymous interchangeably, but when I think, air, well, that's where breathing air versus oxygen, more flammable, that's one thing you can address. The other thing is in terms of the cost, the way I would see this is that it's basically a user fee. It's, if you're going to have the big high-priced building and all of that, that's fine and all that, but the rest of the taxpayer shouldn't have to, on an ongoing basis, basically subsidize the replacement of equipment and all of that. So I think it's, on that basis, we can make a very good case that it's fair to everybody. But, so anyway, oxygen and air.
Air replenishment system, FARS.
Second.
That would be Appendix L, not 1.
Oh, thank you. I don't have my glasses on. What he said.
Any further comment, questions?
Well, I would just say, in a practical sense, when people, because it mentioned a few times there about, 100 pounds of equipment, and it's like, well, if you want to visualize, if you, go into Costco or Winco or something and put a 40-pound bag of dog food over one shoulder, a 40-pound on the other, and then a 20 on top of your head or something, and so that's what 100 pounds, it's not nothing. So anyway.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, and let's put this on our full agenda, please. The second item, thank you guys. The second item before us is proposed changes to and renewal of the MOU with Idaho Disaster Dogs. Welcome Jeff Sills, our Deputy Fire Chief of Operations.
Thank you. You brought up dog food, and I'm here to talk about dogs.
Okay, good.
So there's 2 decision points for renewal of the MOU between the Idaho Disaster Dogs and the city. First one is a change in language to change the address to 300 Foster, and then the second part of that was to increase the funding that the team receives from the city from $5,000 to $8,000. And then the second decision point was to renew the MOU between the city and Idaho Disaster Dog for 5 years. Some history. Idaho Disaster Dogs is a nonprofit that owns and maintains the search canines that we utilize for the city fire department, specifically for our tech rescue team. In 2020, the city and Idaho Disaster Dogs entered into the MOU, and it was to define the parameters of who is responsible for the maintenance and the certification of the dogs. The current MOU expires in February of 25. Pursuant to the MOU, the city agreed to pay $5,000 to Idaho Disaster Dogs annually. One was to purchase a liability insurance policy, and then the remainder was to help offset the costs of some of the veterinary care. When the MOU when it was last signed in 2020, the team's vet costs were a little over $3,400. This year, they're over $7,000. So it's like everything else, price goes up, and they get a fantastic break on veterinary care from the Rastrum Animal Clinic. So financial analysis, this would increase our line item for professional services by $3,000, and we would just plan on increasing that budget during the next budget year. Performance analysis, the K-9 program has had an active role in enhancing the tech rescue resources for the Coeur d'Alene Fire Department. During the term of this MOU, the team has had 5 federal disaster deployments and a myriad of local and regional deployments as well. We have supported local sheriff's departments, search and rescue, other fire departments all across the region. The biggest benefit that we see from this is we have handlers coming back with real world experience that, that's enhanced our planning should we ever have one of these disasters in our city. And it's an important thing for us to be part of that community and being able to help our, other communities around us. So our recommendation is that council should approve the proposed changes to the MOU and then renew the MOU between the City of Coeur d'Alene and Idaho Disaster Dogs. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeff, you said you've already used over 7,000 of your budget this year for
Yes.
this. So I think that you're being very prudent, but you don't know what's going to happen in the coming year. I would just suggest a change, and we can deal with it at council. I would suggest that you request up to an additional $5,000. If you don't use it, it goes back to the general fund. That way you're not over budget or coming back to us. And if you're spot on with 3,000, you're good.
Yeah, I may have to defer to Randy and Troy, because it was a donation that was made from the city to the nonprofit. So we don't submit purchase requests through the city purchasing process for like vet care. So the team gets the donation from the city, and then they purchase the liability insurance, and then if there's anything left, sometimes those vet bills go up and down. I wish they would go down, but not as much. But anytime it goes over, they use donated funds from other avenues to help, to help offset those costs. But I'm not sure how that would work to go through a purchasing process or a PO process for vet care.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We're more like a sponsorship
simple,
for this
yeah.
great program, and then they fund themselves. It is a nonprofit standalone for all the liability purposes, and so he's asked for that dollar amount going forward, and then we hope to help them out any way we could as a city without having the direct expense for the animal care.
Okay. Thanks.
Great.
And I just want to add, I appreciate all the communication as our team is deployed with the dogs, and the partnership is invaluable, so thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'll make a motion then to recommend that council approve proposed changes to and the renewal of the MOU with the Idaho Disaster Dogs.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
And team, would you prefer this be on the agenda or the consent?
I think routine consent is
Yeah.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Consent agenda, please. Our third and final item today is adoption of wastewater.
This area, which has undergone many names, but I'm referencing as Coeur right now, was annexed in sort of, this is taken from a different different map, but it was from south of Hanley here, this square here was annexed in March of 2023. That was about 430 acres or so. Was annexed in, and the annexation and development agreement limited them to 2,800 ERUs within that newly annexed area. Part of that agreement also included adoption of a couple of surcharge fees, which is what we're here to discuss. There's another area off this map, which I'll show you on the next map, which is the U.S. Forest Service property. And that area is about 200 acres. And I was curious how we'd come up with the density of that area. So what we did was took this area and its maximum density of 2,800 ERUs and got a simple number of maximum ERUs per acre and allocated that same amount to the U.S. Forest Service just to keep things as even as possible. So when you're looking at both of those areas, we're getting a total of 4,075 ERUs. Hopefully this map helps clear it up a little bit. So this slide is showing both areas that are going to be needing improvement. First, let's start with this fairway trunk main. This is the area I was showing you previously, minus the top third. So this is the Coeur property minus the top third, just this area in yellow, and this area over here is the U.S. Forest Service property. Both of those areas are going to feed into the fairway trunk main. The fairway trunk main runs about here or so, and it simply is not sloped right. It's not pitched right, it's a bit shallow, and then it steepens up, and we need to adjust the pitch on it. Otherwise, models show that that's going to back up, which is a problem. So we had an engineer, HDR Engineering, came up with a cost on that of $2.4 million. So everybody within this area that is going to feed into that is going to pay a surcharge to cover the cost of that future upgrade. And then on the adjacent map here is the Riverside Interceptor area of impact. So that is everything in purple. So everything that annexed in recently with the Coeur annexation agreement, as well as this U.S. Forest Service property, which is not annexed in, just for clarification, is not annexed into the city at the moment. This project is a little bit harder to see. I was struggling on how to show you this exactly, but the Riverside Interceptor runs on this side of the highway down along the Centennial Trail, and it's currently a 24-inch pipe, and it's just not big enough to handle all this flow. So that's a much larger project, and it's going to involve putting in a 21-inch pipe parallel to it. And you can see that's $10.5 million. So the way this works is, if you lived or want to build a house up here, you can see you're outside of that fairway trunk main area, so you wouldn't be paying that fee, but you're in the purple area on this Riverside Interceptor, so you would be paying the Riverside Interceptor fee. If you were trying to put a house in over here or over here on the U.S. Forest Service land, you would pay that Riverside Interceptor fee, but you're also incumbent to pay the fairway trunk main fee. And these are not in replacement of our standard cap fee. These are in addition to that standard cap fee. The cost breakdown looks like this. The fairway trunk main, like I said, is about $2.5 million, and if you were to add up all the areas in those colored areas, it's about 2,414 ERUs, or equivalent residential units, houses. Restaurant is worth more than one house, it could be worth 10 houses or 20 houses, depends how big it is, but that's the standard unit we use. So it was just simple math, and the math comes out to $1,005 per ERU to cover the cost of that project. Same thing with the Riverside Interceptor. There's more, it's a larger cost, but there's more ERUs to cover that cost, and that translates to $2,590 per ERU. The fees would be assessed when you come in for a building permit, just like they are now. When you come in for a building permit, we'll assess cap fees, or we've got other fees like this throughout the city. This is not the first time we've done this. There's a Mill River surcharge fee, if you'll recall. We just discussed this at our last council meeting that covered improvements to the Mill River lift station that we're doing this year. So those fees get assessed at time of permit. And then as well, which is a little bit different for this one, we're going to do an annual adjustment to that cost based on the construction cost index. So this is something that is kept. It's sort of an industry standard that looks at total costs and how much inflation has affected construction costs. This will allow this fee in 10 years to still be sort of equivalent to what the actual construction costs are going to be. So the benefits of this are that the costs are borne by those that are affecting this area. Somebody who builds a property on government way or something is not going to be utilizing this infrastructure, so they wouldn't be bearing the cost. It's only being borne by those who are actually making the requirement to upsize our infrastructure. It allows us obviously to do that without rate increases to everybody else, and then allows for sustainability. Most importantly, it keeps us from to let our infrastructure be maintained to the point where it continues to serve our needs. So there's obviously, I don't anticipate there's any decision point tonight. We'll be bringing this forward to council. This is really just a way to get the information across to you and other council who may be viewing this. But we'll be asking for a $1,005 per ERU fairway trunk main interceptor fee. We'll figure out a better way to word that. And then as well for the Riverside interceptor at $2,590. And then lastly would be the ability to adjust this annually as per the construction cost index on the engineering news record. And again, this was all within the annexation and annexation agreement with that the city had signed with these developers. And I'd stand for any questions and discussion you may have on this.
Thank you. Questions?
Well, just to clarify on the, I think it's the Riverside or whatever, but basically the nursery area is the one that we're talking about. And just, you know, they're not looking at putting houses in their nursery, are they? Or is it, okay.
So,
And
that's a
I
great
didn't know
question.
they'd pay us, okay, so.
And I'll try to clarify that during my next presentation
Okay.
next week. But so again, the only area that's annexed into the city is this area on the left,
Right.
which is
Oh,
in
okay,
purple. This area is not within the city right now. The reason for doing this now and including this U.S. Forest Service area is only if both of these annex in, will these improvements be required. The problem is if we allow just, this is why we included it in the original agreement with the developer, if we allowed them to annex in and didn't charge them anything on these charges, and then the U.S. Forest Service in the future decided to annex in and wanted to put up houses or something like that, it would obviously be a lot less houses to divide that a dollar amount among, and it would be, you know, I don't know, $20,000 or $30,000 per house, and it would just make that too expensive. So we wanted to include that in this new development as well to help split that cost out as much as possible. But no, this is not annexed in at the moment, and I haven't heard any rumors of it annexing in. We're just trying to prepare for the future.
But kind of a standby fee, but it's
Yeah.
good to have it in there, yeah, so, yeah, okay, thanks.
Thank you. Well, it obviously makes sense that the people using the services bear the cost. Could you be a little more specific about when some of this construction would take place? I mean, I know nothing's on the property now, and what that will mean for current residents, like what exactly will happen in their neighborhoods?
So it's a little hard to predict that as to when we would do this infrastructure. The one that's going to impact people as far as in your neighborhood the most, it would be this fairway trunk main, and I can't really zoom in really well. If I can, I don't know how. But it's just on this road here, and that construction project would last. It would tie up a bit of that road. We'd probably have to reroute traffic around the golf course there, but the construction would last a season, you know, maybe a month or so, 45 days, something like that. I'm really spitballing a number here.
Sure.
But it's really not a gigantic project. The much bigger one would be on the Centennial Trail, and that's not going to probably impact anybody's house, but it certainly would impact everybody who's rollerblading down the trail. And that would be a much larger project. I would be, at this time, I'm not ready to give you a time on how long that impact would be, but I could see if I could figure that out for next week.
Well, as we move forward with this, I mean, it has to be done. It's good for residents to know that there could be disruptions in the future and what to expect in their own neighborhood.
If this entire area got fully built out to 2,800 ERUs, that 2,800 homes or that equivalent came in, neither of these two projects would be needed according to a computer. We would verify that to make sure that, that those numbers bear out and do flow measuring and things like that. But none of these projects, neither of these two projects would be needed at that point. It would really only be when the U.S. Forest Service land comes in. So it takes them both per the model.
Thank you.
I just, one follow-up on that. You mentioned that you'd have to put a bigger line, like from 14-inch to 21. Would you keep the old one in as kind of emergency backup flow, or?
Yeah, so it's 24-inch right now. And
Oh,
that 24-inch is not big enough, so we would put an additional parallel pipe of 21 inches. And we would probably
okay.
take, just half the flow basically, put it in
use
one and run the
both,
other.
and then still adjust the sloping you mentioned?
Right, correct, we would
Yeah,
do that. The other project is adjusting the slope, but yeah, both would be needed.
Okay, thanks.
That was my question exactly, so thank you.
Okay.
Any further questions, thoughts?
I could make a motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I motion to recommend that council approve the adoption of a $2,590 per ERU surcharge for properties defined within the annexation and development agreement and the U.S. Forest Service land which contribute flow to the Riverside Interceptor, and a $1,005 per ERU surcharge for properties defined within the annexation and development agreement and the U.S. Forest Service land which contribute flow to the Fairway Trunk Main, with an annual adjustment to both surcharges based on the ENR Construction Cost Index as provided in the annexation and development agreement.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries, and I think it'd be a good idea to place this on the full agenda.
Big enough, yeah.
Thank you.